Hello guys, in this video we are going to discuss about history of C language. As you know, what is C language? C language is general purpose because it provides multiple use, high level because more human readable, so compiler based because we need converter software to convert it into binary language, machine independent, and structure programming. So why C is structure programming, that we will see in this video. C seems a strange name for programming language, right? The name can be. But this strange sounding language is one of the most popular language today because it is structured, high level, machine independent. The root of all modern languages, Algol, introduced in early 1960s. Algol was the first computer language to use block structure, right? Now what is block structure? One question arises. Although it never became popular in USA, it was widely used in Europe. Algol gave the concept of structure programming, right, to the computer science community. Now assume that you have two variables, or you can say you have two numbers that user will provide you, and you have to find out which one is maximum. Simple instruction which is look like this. First step would be start your program. Second step would be read A and B. Third step would be if A greater than B, then what you should do? You should simply display A is the largest number, otherwise B is the greatest number. Then you stop the program. Now here you can see if A greater than B, then what you should do, display stuff, right, in which if A greater than B, that means a one single statement, or you can say one statement which is considered in if block that you should execute. Means if this condition holds good, then the statement which if consists should execute. That's why if having a block, right, and this block type of structure is called as structure programming. In this way you can see if A greater than B simply means you have to display A is the largest number, and you have to simply skip the otherwise section which consists display B is the largest. Similarly, if A greater than B condition became false, means B is the largest, that means you have to do only display B is the largest. That's why Algol gave the concept of structure programming to the computer science. And Algol simply stands for algorithmic language, in which you write steps, or you can say English instruction for solving problems. In 1967, Martin Richard developed a language called BCPL, primarily for writing system software. Now system software simply means you are writing for compiler, interpreter, OS and all that stuff. In 1917, Ken Thompson created a language using many features of BCPL and simply called B language. So you can see BCPL language which primarily for writing what? System software. Now B is also capable of writing system software, like using B language you can write compiler, interpreter, you can write your own operating system as well. B was used to create early versions of Unix operating system. Like you can see, using B, Unix operating system was developed at Bell Laboratories. Both BCPL and B were typeless system programming language. So typeless simply means they have no type, or you can say if you have an integer value like int, you have a 10, right, you have a number which is integer, then you can simply say it is integer. That means you are providing type to the data. That's why it is known as data type. C was evolved from Algol. Algol was a structure programming. That's why C is also what? Structure programming. Using BCPL and B, you can do what? You can write system program. That's why using C language, you can also develop system softwares. C uses many features of this language and added some concept of data type, right? Which is known as type, or you can say data have a certain type. That's why it is known as data type and other powerful features. Since it was developed along with the Unix operating system, it is strongly associated with OS, right? Which is Unix in this sense. So Unix was also developing at that moment, and C was also developing at that stage. That means many development, you can say C also developed at the same time when Unix is also developed. That's why in many universities C programs, they always wanted that students write C program in the Ubuntu OS or any other OS system. That's the only reason. For many years, C was used mainly in academic environment, like it was for theoretical purpose only, no practical use. But eventually, the C compiler is released for commercial use. The increasing popularity of Unix, and using Unix, any person can write C software. So it began gain widespread support all along computer professionals. Today C is running under variety of OS and hardware platforms. During 1970s, C had evolved into what is now known as traditional C. At that time in 1970s it was known as traditional C. After that, the developer decided to write a book. The language became more popular after the publication of the book, which is known as Cprogramming by Brian Kernighan and Dennis Ritchie, right? You can see by Kernighan and Ritchie in 1978. So the language is also known as KNRC among the programming community. The rapid growth of C led to the development of different versions of the language that were similar but often incompatible. Means using C language, people, or you can say many organization person trying to develop their own version, but it was not compatible for sure. This posed a serious problem for system developer, right? To assure that C language remains standard in 1983, ANSI appointed a technical committee to define what C standard, right? A standard should be there and all the standards should be followed. The committee approved a version of C in December 1989, which is known as ANSI C, which is ANSI C. It was then approved by International Standard Organization in 1990. This version is also known as C89 because it is already approved by ANSI committee in the December 1989. That's why it is also known as C89. All popular computer language are dynamic in nature, means all the computer language, they have some improvement and they add many features, so you can say new features. So C is no exception as well. Although C++ and Java were evolved out of C, the standardization committee of C felt the new features of C++ and Java, if added to C, it would be great. So it would enhance the usefulness, right? Now you can see C++ and Java evolved out of C. Now C committee, the standardization committee, felt that new features, or you can say few features of C++ and Java, if added to the C which is already developed, it would enhance the usefulness. The result was the 1999 standard for C, which took 10 years. After 10 years, C89, a new version is developed, which is known as C99, or you can say highly intended by C++ and Java. Although C99 was never popular, or you can say many people doesn't use that much, and system software doesn't support. Now recollecting all the stuff. In 1960, Algol was developed by International Group. In 1967, BCPL was developed by Martin Richard. In 1917, B language was developed by Ken Thompson. In 1972, Traditional C developed by Dennis Ritchie. The book published, which is known as KNRC, in 1978 by Ken Regan and Ritchie. Then 89, ANSYS C, ANSI Committee. Then 1990, ANSIC and ISO approved, so ISO committee. In 1999, C99 version developed by the Standardization Committee.